The school gymnasium went silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from respect. The kind that comes from shock. 11-year-old Sophie Turner stood frozen on the stage, her clarinet hanging at her side, her eyes locked on the back row of folding chairs, on a man she'd only seen in photographs. Her mother, Rachel Turner, sat in the third row, her face drained of all color. The man stood slowly, confusion and recognition battling across his face, and Sophie, in front of 200 parents and students, said the words that shattered everything. "Dad?" 3 weeks earlier, Rachel Turner sat in her car outside Lincoln Elementary in Portland, waiting for the pickup line to move. Her phone was balanced on her lap. She was exhausted, the kind of exhausted that comes from working 2 jobs, raising a child alone, and trying to hold everything together with duct tape and willpower. She'd been drafting a voicemail for her brother Jake all afternoon. He'd been helping with Sophie's after-school care, and she needed to thank him properly. She pressed record. "Jake, it's me. I need you to know how much you mean to us. You've been the only man in Sophie's life who's stayed. The only one who's shown up. I don't know what we'd do without you. You're the father she should have had. I love you for that. Thank you." She pressed send without thinking. Her phone was on speaker. The voicemail went through. Then her screen refreshed. And Rachel's blood went cold. The message hadn't gone to Jake. It had gone to Daniel Mercer, her boss, the chief technology officer of Cascade Solutions, the software firm where she worked as a senior project manager, the same Daniel Mercer who had zero tolerance for personal drama at work, who'd fired someone last year for unprofessional conduct, who she'd been carefully avoiding for months because he made her nervous with his quiet intensity and unreadable expressions. Rachel stared at her phone like it was a live grenade. The voicemail had been delivered. Played. She couldn't breathe. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Rachel sat on her bathroom floor and let herself panic. She'd sent her boss a voicemail calling him the father her daughter should have had. No, worse. She'd sent her boss a voicemail that was clearly meant for someone else, exposing her entire messy personal life in under 60 seconds. Single mother, absent father, struggling. All of it now sitting in Daniel Mercer's inbox. She typed and deleted a dozen apology emails. Nothing felt right. Finally, at 1 a.m., she sent something short. "Mr. Mercer, I am deeply sorry. The voicemail sent earlier was intended for my brother. I apologize for the confusion and for sending it outside business hours. It won't happen again." She didn't sleep. The next morning, Rachel walked into the office like she was walking into an execution. She kept her head down, avoided the executive floor, focused on her work with mechanical precision. At 11:30, her phone pinged. An email from Daniel Mercer. Subject, no apology necessary. Audio and Rachel, mistakes happen. No need to apologize. Let's move forward. DM. That was it. No lecture. No HR meeting. No humiliation. Rachel exhaled for the first time in 14 hours. But something about the email felt off. Not angry, not dismissive. Almost careful. Over the next week, Rachel noticed something strange. Daniel started appearing more often. Not intrusively, just present. He'd stop by her desk to check on project timelines, something he'd never done before. He'd ask about her workload in team meetings, making sure she wasn't being overwhelmed. Once, when she was working late, he'd walked by her office and paused. "You should go home, Rachel. Whatever it is can wait until tomorrow." She'd looked up, surprised. "I'm almost done." He'd nodded slowly. "I'm sure you are, but go home anyway." It wasn't a command. It was concern. Rachel didn't know what to do with that. 2 weeks after the voicemail, Daniel called her into his office. Rachel's stomach dropped. Here it comes, she thought. The real consequences. She knocked on his door. "Come in." Daniel sat behind his desk, but his posture was relaxed. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit, please." She sat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Rachel, I want to talk to you about the Singapore project." She blinked. That was not what she'd expected. "We're opening a new development office there. It's a 6-month setup. I need someone to lead the operational integration." He paused. "I think you're the right person." Rachel stared at him. That's a senior director role." "It is. I don't have the title." "You'd get the title, and the raise that comes with it." She should have been thrilled. Instead, she felt a strange tightness in her chest. What about Sophie? Daniel's expression softened slightly. It would mean travel. 3 trips over 6 months, a week each time. But the rest would be remote management. He leaned forward. I wouldn't offer this if I didn't think you could handle it. But I also won't pressure you. If your answer is no, nothing changes here. Rachel looked at him carefully. Why are you offering this to me? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Because you're good at what you do. And because I think you've been underestimating yourself for a long time. There was something in his voice. Something that made Rachel wonder if he'd listened to that voicemail more than once. Can I think about it? Of course. Take your time. That night, Rachel sat at the kitchen table with Sophie, helping her with math homework. Mom, who's Jake? Rachel looked up. Your Uncle Jake, you know him. I know. But why did you call him on the phone the other night and say he was like a dad? Rachel's pen stopped moving. You heard that? Sophie nodded. I came downstairs for water. You were in the living room. Rachel set down the pen. Uncle Jake helps us a lot. I was thanking him. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Do you think my real dad will ever come back? The question hit Rachel like a punch. Sophie rarely asked about him anymore. Rachel chose her words carefully. I don't know, sweetheart. He made choices a long time ago. But that doesn't mean you're missing anything. You have people who love you. Like Uncle Jake. Like Uncle Jake. Sophie went back to her homework. But Rachel could see the question still sitting in her daughter's eyes. The next day, Rachel accepted the Singapore project. It felt like the right move professionally. But personally, it felt like she was running from something she couldn't name. Over the next 3 weeks, Rachel and Daniel worked closely on the project setup. Conference calls, late-night emails, strategy sessions, and somewhere in the controlled professionalism, Rachel started noticing things. The way Daniel listened when she spoke. The way he never interrupted. The way he remembered details she'd mentioned in passing. Once, during a video call, Sophie had burst into Rachel's home office, upset about a school assignment. Rachel had apologized, flustered, trying to calm Sophie while staying on the call. Daniel had simply said, "Take your time. We'll wait." And he had. When Rachel came back 10 minutes later, he'd asked, "Is she okay?" Not annoyed. Genuinely concerned. Rachel had nodded, throat tight. She's fine. Thank you. The Friday before Rachel's first trip to Singapore, the company held its annual family day at the park. Employees brought their kids for games, food, and a talent show. Sophie had been practicing her clarinet for weeks. Rachel stood near the stage, watching her daughter tune her instrument. Pride and nerves tangled in her chest. Then she felt someone beside her. Daniel. He was holding a coffee, his tie loosened, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. She's talented, he said quietly. Rachel glanced at him surprised. You've never met her. I've heard you talk about her. That counts. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Daniel spoke again, his voice careful. I listened to that voicemail more than once. Rachel's breath caught. I shouldn't have. I'm not upset. He paused. Someone called his name from across the field. He waved them off, then turned back to Rachel. I wanted you to know that I heard what you didn't say. She looked at him, confused. What I didn't say? He met her eyes. That you're doing this alone. That it's hard. That you're tired. That you said the father she should have had. Like you've been carrying that failure for years. Rachel's throat tightened. Daniel looked away for a moment, like he was deciding whether to continue. My ex-wife left me 3 years ago. We'd been trying for kids. It didn't work out medically. She decided she didn't want that life anymore. He stopped. Started again. Didn't want me. Rachel stared at him. I threw myself into work because it was easier than dealing with the fact that I'd failed at the one thing I wanted most. A family. His voice was steady, but there was pain underneath. When I heard your voicemail, I didn't hear a mistake. I heard someone fighting like hell to be enough for the person they love most. Rachel's eyes burned. I don't know why He stopped himself, looked at her directly. I think you should know you're not alone in feeling like you're barely holding it together. Before Rachel could respond, Sophie's name was called. She walked onto the stage, clarinet raised, and she played beautifully. Rachel clapped until her hands hurt, tears streaming down her face. Daniel clapped beside her, smiling. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. She kept replaying Daniel's words, the gentleness in his voice, the way he'd stood beside her, the way he'd seen her, really seen her. She thought about the voicemail, the mistake that had started all of this, and she realized something. She wasn't falling for Daniel because he was her boss or because he was kind. She was falling for him because he made her feel like she didn't have to be perfect, like being messy and struggling and human was okay. The Monday before her flight, Rachel went to Daniel's office. She knocked. "Come in." She stepped inside and closed the door. "I need to tell you something." Daniel looked up, concerned. "Is everything okay?" "I don't know." She took a breath. That voicemail wasn't entirely a mistake. He frowned slightly, confused. "What do you mean?" "I meant it for my brother. But the things I said, about needing someone, about being grateful for someone who stays." She met his eyes. "I've been feeling that way about you too, and I don't know what to do with that." Daniel stood slowly. "Rachel, I know this is complicated. I know there are policies and power, dynamics and 100 reasons. This is a bad idea." Her voice shook. "But I can't get on a plane tomorrow without being honest." Daniel walked around the desk. He stopped a few feet from her. "I've been trying not to feel this way for weeks." His voice was low. "But every time I see you, every time we talk, I keep thinking about that voicemail, about how much I want to be the person you can rely on." Rachel's breath hitched. "What do we do?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "We do this right. We talk to HR. We make sure everything is documented and appropriate. You report to someone else." He stepped closer. "And then if you'll let me, I'd like to take you to dinner. After you get back from Singapore?" Rachel smiled through tears. "I'd like that." 4 months later, the school gymnasium was packed for the winter concert. Rachel sat in the third row, her brother Jake on one side, Daniel on the other. Sophie was backstage preparing for her solo. Jake leaned over. "She's been practicing nonstop. You'd think it was Carnegie Hall." Rachel smiled. "She gets that from you. You never did anything halfway either." Jake squeezed her shoulder. "She's got good people around her. That's what matters." Daniel leaned over slightly. "Nervous?" "Terrified," Rachel admitted. He took her hand, squeezed it gently. "She'll be amazing." When Sophie walked onto the stage, Rachel's heart swelled. Her daughter looked so grown up, so confident. Sophie raised her clarinet, found Rachel in the audience, and smiled. Then she played, and it was perfect. Afterward, in the lobby, Sophie ran to them. She hugged Rachel first, then Jake. "Uncle Jake, did you see me?" "I did. You were incredible." Then Sophie looked at Daniel. "Did you like it?" Daniel crouched down to her level. "You were incredible." Sophie grinned. "Will you come to the next one?" Daniel glanced at Rachel, who nodded slightly. "I wouldn't miss it." Sophie hugged him. And Rachel, watching her daughter embrace this man who'd walked into their lives through a voicemail mistake, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not perfect. Not fixed. But real. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Rachel sat on the couch with Daniel. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not running. For staying. For being patient with all of this." Daniel turned to her. "Do you remember what you said in that voicemail? The part about the only one who's shown up?" Rachel nodded. "I've listened to it probably 50 times. And every time that line hits me." He took her hand. "Because I spent 3 years believing I wasn't enough. That I couldn't be the person anyone would want to stay for." His voice was soft. "But you made me realize that showing up is enough. That being present, even imperfectly, matters." Rachel's eyes glistened. "You've shown up for us in ways I didn't think were possible." She leaned into him. "I'm not going anywhere either." And for the first time in a long time, Rachel Turner believed that maybe, just maybe, mistakes could lead to something beautiful. Not because of fate, but because two people chose every single day to show up. Sometimes the messages we send by accident are the ones we needed to send all along.